Greetings and welcome everybody. My name is Chuck Palm and I am the new old tech guy. This is the tech news for Monday, January 12th through Friday, January 16th. This is the wrap-up of the tech news that airs on America in the Morning, Monday through Friday, every weekday at 5 a.m. live and on various podcast platforms. On Monday, we talked about a group of scientists who have created tiny miniature robots no bigger than a grain of salt. The University of Pennsylvania and University of Michigan have unveiled what they describe as the world's smallest, fully programmable, autonomous robots, each one measuring roughly 200 by 300 by 50 micrometers. That's smaller than a single grain of salt, or about the size of many single-celled organisms. These microscopic mini-machines, detailed in peer-reviewed studies, such as Science Robotics, represent a major advancement in micro-robotics. They integrate an onboard computer, temperature sensors capable of detecting changes as fine as 1/3 of a degree Celsius, and a propulsion system, all powered by minuscule solar cells that harvest light to generate just 75 nanowatts of energy. That extraordinarily low power is over 100,000 times less than what it takes to power a typical smartwatch. Rather than relying on traditional motors or external magnetic fields, these robots propel themselves through liquids using electrokinetic principles. They generate controlled electrical fields that move charged ions in the surrounding fluid, in turn dragging water molecules along. No mechanical parts to wear out. And the best part? Production costs are remarkably low, about 1 penny per unit, thanks to standard microfabrication techniques that allow hundreds to be made in parallel. Tuesday, we talked about the deal that Apple struck with Google in a swap worth over $1 billion a year. Google and Apple have inked a multi-year deal that puts Google Gemini models at the heart of Apple's revamped Siri and future Apple AI features. In a partnership announced yesterday, in a brand new blockbuster deal, the long-standing alliance between the two tech giants is an extension of the deal where Google pays Apple billions of dollars each year to be the default search engine on iPhones and Safari. Apple selected Gemini as the most capable foundation for its own Apple Foundation models. This will power a more personalized, smarter Siri rolling out later this year, finally delivering on promises that were delayed from 2025 and other upcoming AI capabilities across Apple's ecosystem of over 2 billion active Apple devices. The deal ensures that everything continues to run on-device or through Apple's private cloud compute, upholding the industry standards we've come to expect. No financial details were officially disclosed in the joint statement, though prior reports suggest that Apple could be paying Google around $1 billion annually for access to this tech. In crypto news, the feud between President Trump and the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell has caused major cryptos to dump most of their gains this year, with Bitcoin trading at $90,800 and Ethereum at $3,084. Wednesday's story was all about how the crypto industry finally may be getting government regulation that they've been asking for a long time. U.S. senators have unveiled a long-awaited draft legislation aimed at finally putting clear rules around the cryptocurrency market. This bill would create a federal framework to define when digital assets like Bitcoin or Ethereum tokens count as securities, as overseen by the Securities and Exchange Commission, or commodities, which would fall primarily under the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, the regulator the crypto industry has long preferred for spot market trading. Key provisions include giving the CFTC authority over day-to-day crypto spot markets, while requiring joint rules-making with the SEC on certain issues. It also builds on last year's stablecoin law by prohibiting crypto firms from paying plain interest just for holding a dollar-pegged stablecoin, addressing banking concerns about the deposit flight, but allowing rewards for activities like making payments or joining loyalty programs. Companies would have to make clear disclosures about those incentives. Crypto trade groups are encouraged by the momentum, though some lobbyists doubt that full passage this year with midterms looming. Banks, meanwhile, are pushing back on the parts that they see as risky financial stability. This is a potential game changer if it becomes law, providing the legal clarity the industry says it needs to grow without relying on changeable regulatory guidance. Thursday was all about the big Verizon SOS, and I'll bet they're regretting that phrase, "Can you hear me now?" They were out for most of the day. One of the nation's largest cellular carriers, Verizon, has been dealing with an outage for most of the day yesterday, knocking out voice calls, texting, and mobile data for customers across the United States. The trouble kicked off around noon yesterday with outage reports spiking on tracking sites like Down Detector, peaking at over 175,000 complaints and in the tens of thousands by the end of the business day. Many customers were still seeing that dreaded SOS message on their iPhones, meaning that the iPhone has fallen back into emergency satellite mode where it can only reach 911 service. Additionally, they may have had no signal bars at all on Android devices. This affected most major metro areas from New York and Washington, D.C., down through Atlanta, Charlotte, Houston, and Dallas, with reports scattered as far west as California. Verizon confirmed the issue, saying updates in social media that we are aware of an issue impacting wireless voice and data for some of our customers. Engineers are engaged and working to identify and solve the issue quickly. By 6 p.m. Eastern yesterday, Verizon still had no answer on what caused the outage and no firm timeline for full restoration. Pro tip, 911 is almost always available even on a disconnected phone, but you might make note where your police and fire stations are in your neighborhood. This is not a happy guy. Elon Musk was dealt another blow as Grok is being used for sexualized imagery and deepfakes. Elon Musk's xAI has pulled back on its image features for its Grok chatbot after a global wave of regulator pushback over explicit deepfake images. Some have reported hyper-realistic manipulated images of women in bikinis, degrading poses, and even some involving minors digitally altered. Some of these were not just fringe cases, but thousands that were generated and spread fast across X. xAI says they have now restricted users from creating images of real people in any inappropriate attire in jurisdictions where it's illegal, although they haven't specified exactly which ones. Malaysia and Indonesia have already slapped temporary bans on Grok, while probes are underway in the EU, UK, France, and Italy. Britain's Ofcom welcomed the change but made clear their investigation continues, and the European Commission warned that if these fixes don't hold, they'll bring the full weight of the Digital Services Act. Musk initially downplayed the trend, but this marks a rare regulatory win against one of his companies, forcing a quick turnaround on a tool that made digital undressing too easy and too accessible. Laws like the UK's Online Safety Act treat sharing intimate AI-generated images without consent as a priority offense. The ongoing challenge will be balancing innovation with real-world safeguards against misuse. And that's the recap of your tech news for Monday, January 12th through Friday, January 15th, 2026, as heard live on America in the Morning by Westwood One. I'm Chuck Palm, your new old tech guy. Have a great week.